Hey, everybody. Hope and pray that you're doing well. Today, as we come to our word from the Word, and today that word is preparation. Preparation. Now, you see that picture there we put up. Something to think about, like a nuclear war going on. People would be prepared for what may happen. Now, we know that ever since the atomic bomb first came on the scene, 80 years ago, when all that began, and then everybody started seeing how they could build up a better arsenal and get more powerful bombs. You go from the atomic bomb, the hydrogen bomb, and now the nuclear weapons that we have today that are, it's just enough to destroy everything many times over. And and so I want you to think about this before we even look into the passage today. We're in Revelation chapter 8 today. But I want you to think about for just a moment, and I've told this to, I know people in our church and people I've talked to about end times before. As we look to what John is recording, I want you to think about what he has never seen, right? So, I mean, he's never seen footage of a nuclear blast. He's never seen bombs or planes or, I mean, all these things that he has never seen. Nothing like that in creation at that time. So, I mean, you're talking about roughly 2,000 years ago when he's writing this down. None of these things existed. So, because God has allowed him to see these things which are to come, and so that he could write it down and tell us about it, think about how he would describe some of the things he was seeing. Right? How would you describe a nuclear blast? We talked about this even when Peter talks about in Second Peter, talking about the melting away of everything, and even the description that he uses. We know it's divinely given by God because he was explaining exactly what would happen in a nuclear blast. Now, doesn't it make sense that in the end times, whenever that may be, that nuclear war is probably going to play a part in it? See, many times that we see with judgment of Israel, even in the Old Testament, right? He used enemy nations. He used man to fulfill what his judgment was going to be. He used the enemy to pour out that judgment. And so we kind of see that same thought, that same idea here in Revelation. So we got through, and the opening of the seventh seal is what we see today. And that opening of the seventh seal opens up and introduces something new: seven trumpets. Now, four of these trumpets are mentioned in chapter 8, and then it will follow with the rest of them. But now we'll kind of see a similar thing at the end of the trumpets, that seventh one there opens up the bowls. And so you'll kind of see that. So as we're talking about the seven seals there that were written on this judgment, the whole thing, this scroll was sealed up, and yet now the seventh seal has been broken, and it's almost like now the judgment is visible. And that's where we're going to open up today. Revelation chapter 8, verses 1 through 6 today. When he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And when I saw the seven angels who stand before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. Then another angel, having a golden censer, came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, with the prayers of the saints, ascended before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. And there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. So the seven angels who had the seven trumpets prepared themselves to sound. And as you continue reading on your own, you will see that these first seven trumpets, these first four, it's a third of this is gone, a third of this, a third of the water, a third of the fresh water, the rivers, a third of the people. As it goes on throughout the trumpets, you will see this devastation that comes. That's why, as we look to this, it seems that, okay, we have reached the halfway point, and that the trumpets and the bowls are the great tribulation. Then if you go back and look in chapter 7, you'll see that after the sealing of the 144,000. But for today, right, preparation. Okay, well, one, if we believe that the church will be raptured out, and side note, I did go back and fix where I misspoke in Friday's video, where I misspoke and said that Jesus taught that the church was not going to go through the rapture. I meant that Jesus taught that the church was not going to go through the tribulation. I apologize for that. From time to time, we know what we're thinking, but that doesn't necessarily come out of our mouths. But here, the preparation that I wanted us to think about is right. The church, we shouldn't have to prepare if we believe that the church is going to be raptured out. What preparation could I be talking about? Well, one, as you look through here, you notice that uh, this what's going on with the censer, and then it be gathering fire and then throwing it to the earth. This is seen in the Old Testament times as well, as the priests went into the temple, and there was this solemn service, and what was going on is they would take the fire from the altar and light everything else. And so you see there's a similarity here between it, and we know that God doesn't do anything without divine purpose. But the fact that it included the prayers of the saints, right now, so could he be talking about only the tribulation saints who were praying for justice? Or he could be very well talking about all the prayers of the saints that God has reserved, all the prayers that any saved child of God has prayed for justice to be poured out on the wicked. God has held on to those prayers. You know those times where God says, "Not right now." It's almost as if you have to imagine this way, that God hears that prayer, and God doesn't need to write it down. But let's just say God writes it down and says, "Okay, we're going to save that one for later. We're going to save that one for later. We're going to save that one for later." And every time we've prayed for justice, that all the prayers of the saints that were praying for justice against those against the wicked, that He has held on to them to pour out in judgment during this time. And so, and even if it's just the prayer of the tribulation saints, it was the same thing. He was, hold on just a little bit longer, right? Hold on just a little bit longer. This is going to be poured out. You're going to see. The key here, I think, for me today, and I hope for you as well, is that we realize that God has still been preparing for this moment. It is still going, it's going to happen. It's going to happen the way God has said it was going to. But the reason, as we think about the divine timetable, that maybe we won't ever understand until we get to glory, until all this has happened in our past. Think about all the preparation leading up to this. Think about the time that God has been patient, the time that He has allowed people to come to salvation. But I think about also the acceleration of things that happen here in this great tribulation, the acceleration and the speed with which these judgments are poured out, especially these trumpet judgments. It also ought to make us look around and realize just how quickly things could change. We know how quickly nations can be at war. It doesn't take but one bomb to be dropped, and it starts retaliation back and forth. Do we realize how quickly this world could be wiped out? Do we realize how quickly all the things that are poured out in these judgments, and I encourage you to read it, how many of these describe exactly what would happen with a nuclear battle? If we know all that and know all that to be true, I'll go back to what we talked about yesterday in our Sunday sermon, right? If we regard this as God's truth, that God's word is truth, what are we going to do in response? What are we going to do to prepare? For the believer, what we do to prepare is pray for as many people to be saved that can be. We do our job to carry out the Great Commission that we have been commanded to do. And then we rely on God to provide all that we need. That is the preparation that we need to have. Because at the end of the day, at the heart of all of this, what we should desire is that not even our worst enemy would have to go through what Revelation entails, and that we should so desire for them to be saved that will stop at nothing to save them from it. That is the preparation that you and I need to have today. God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.